Hey everybody, I want to talk about speed ladders. I know that's a hot topic in our profession right now. There's a big divide. The people over here are like, you should never do speed ladders. There's some people that I know that I think are very smart, very intelligent, that they think we should get rid of all speed ladders. No one should ever do a speed ladder again. I respect these people tremendously, but I do disagree. Then there's people on this side that say, we did speed ladders and it worked for me. I had a successful career, or I've done speed ladders for kids for 20 years plus, and I know that it works. And I would say that they're probably wrong as well. Here's what a speed ladder doesn't do. It doesn't develop speed. Okay? So, what does a speed ladder do? I can tell you right now, we use it. We have speed ladders painted down in our facility. So, what is a speed ladder good for? First of all, let me make it clear again. A speed ladder does not develop speed in any form or fashion. Not foot speed, not running speed, not any speed. So don't be mistaken. What is a speed ladder? If you guys don't know, it's basically a series of rectangles that are in a rope form or painted down, and your target is to do different movement patterns, different foot patterns in repetition for speed through that implementation, through that tool. So what is it for? Let's start off with what you could use it for. First of all, everybody on this live right now or that's watching this video, how many of you think that jumping rope is a terrible thing to do? Okay, no one raised their hand, because everyone knows jumping rope is a perfectly acceptable thing to do. Why is jumping rope good? Because it builds elasticity in the tissues that you need to be more powerful, and it builds density in those tissues, and it allows you, those low amplitude plyometrics help acclimate the metatarsal joint and all the tissues in the foot. We forget that the foot is a wonderfully made object, maybe the most complex thing in the universe. It's got 26 bones at least. In the metatarsal joint, it's got a talus that sits on I mean, you've got a navicular talus, you've got a subtalar joint, is the calcaneus everts, this drops down and in. Man, it's a lot of moving parts. If you don't have that right, you're going to have problems in your hips. You're going to have problems all the way up the chain, knee, hips, back. Okay, so is jumping rope good? Yeah, it can help develop these tissues correctly. And that's the bottom line. Is it building speed? No. Is it helping with foot speed? No. But is it doing something positive? Yeah, it is. And if it wasn't, then boxers wouldn't have been doing this for decades, and other athletes. So there's some value in that. Now, why am I saying this? The speed ladder is basically an advancement of a jump rope. That's all it is. It's a jump rope. Now, people get into like, what movement patterns are you doing on the ladder? And I've had a coach before tell me, well, if you're going to do a speed ladder with a soccer player, you've got to do the step over this way. And if you don't, it's not going to cross over. Newsflash, nothing's crossing over. So it doesn't need to be specific. Why would you do it? Because, let me give you some instances. With young kids, they need to practice movement patterns because they need to learn how to put pressure into the ground with the tissues in their foot. So what is that? What is the value? The value is that the body can make adaptations to the tendon and ligament, muscular structures, and the bones of the foot. You get blood flow in the foot. If you're putting pressure at different angulations in the foot, at different speeds and velocities, there's a tissue adaptation, which in this case is going to be the priority. If you're looking for a neurological adaptation for speed, this ain't it. You're going to need to look like some of my guys that my friends will call more dynamical systems, movement systems, affordances, constraints, reaction speed, drills that create problem solving. Not a speed ladder. But does that mean a speed ladder needs to be thrown out? No. I just think that everyone should understand what is it for and what is it not. And what it is going to do, it's going to help with the development of tissues, hard structures. It's not a software development tool, it's a hardware development tool. Is hardware important? Yes. Are you going to develop faster feet on the speed ladder? No. I mean, you could definitely help sharpen your neurological responses in patterns that you're never going to use. Okay? An athlete could learn better balance, the skill of using their whole foot on the ground, if you coach it that way. But speed they are not going to get. Okay? Balance, okay, capacity, tissue acclimation. It's a great tool to help athletes get used to the pounding of their feet in practice. It's a great warm-up tool. That's right, John. It's a great warm-up tool, always from a neurological perspective and a physiological perspective. I say more of a physiological perspective because now you get a lot of good, healthy blood flow into the foot. You're going to start firing up some of those fast twitch processes, neurological processes. You speed up that amortization phase so your body's ready for more speed. It's a great warm-up tool. But if you're using it for a warm-up tool and you're not doing any backwards movements, you're leaving a lot on the table from a standpoint of dorsiflexion, increasing ability to explode forward and to jump. And then you got to monitor. Like, here's some of the pitfalls. If you have kids, and I know I can say this, because we used to do ladders 2 times a week with all our athletes, all the way up to the professional level, and sometimes up to 30 or 45 minutes. And we don't do that anymore. We still use it, and I'll tell you what instances later in this video. But what's going to happen is, if you do the ladder too much, what you're going to have is you're going to have movers that sit low, meaning they don't learn how to get maximal force in the ground. They sit low with their hips and knees and ankles, and they're squatty. And so when they sprint, they tend to sprint short. And that means they leave force application on the table that they don't use, and they're not going to maximize their sprint ability. Case in point, a lot of running backs cannot hit max velocity. They're not good 40 runners, okay? They're not good 40 runners. And the reason is because they're used to being in those positions. And a lot of what makes a running back successful is their ability to get their foot on the ground to redirect. So if they're running like a maximal speed sprinter as a habit, naturally and typically they're not a running back because it takes them too long to get their foot down. That's one of the main issues between taking a track athlete and putting them on as a field or sport or power sport athlete is if they have too much flight time, they can't redirect. So I'm digressing, but I'm giving you some examples of what can happen if you do too much speed ladder with an athlete that you want to be, well developed for linear speed. So moving further on that point, you got to know what you're doing when you do the ladder if you're going to use it. Could you never use a ladder? Yeah, sure. Do I think we should be on a witch hunt for it? No, I think it's ridiculous. If you want to get rid of every speed ladder, you need to get rid of every jump rope, and you don't need to let anybody do any pogos. You need to get rid of all static warm-ups, everything. Get rid of all of it, which is a fanatical way to approach it, and I think it's irresponsible. What are some of my favorite ways to use a speed ladder? If I have someone recovering from a surgery, it's one of the easiest ways to get their foot and their body used to the demands from their tissues of their foot and their other soft tissues on pressure points and different angulations, and getting them to learn how to feel that before we put them into reaction type scenarios, problem solving type scenarios. I think it's a great thing for adults to do to keep a certain level of athleticism and balance. And let's be honest, most adults lose their balance and a lot of their athleticism to move kind of in a sphere around them in a very short distance. So I think it's a great thing for adults to do, and I think they think it's fun. For young kids, I think it's a very good way for them to learn some mapping. It can help with neurological processes with kids that have dyslexia type symptoms, like my daughter, or maybe even people that just have some quirks or some issues. It can really help because you're doing all these patterns. It's no different than doing puzzles. Actually, it is different because you're moving, so it's much better connecting brain to body. So I love the ladder for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons to love it, but one reason is not for speed development. And so let me go further with this. If let's just say a Hall of Fame pro athlete that tells you the speed ladder was a secret to his success, let me go forward and say most professional athletes have no idea what the secret to their success was. Just because they were successful doesn't mean they actually understand why. It doesn't even mean that they understand how. They're a pro athlete. They got a lot of gifts from God. They had a lot of people helping them, and then they themselves were professional enough to allow that to happen. But they are not a professional coach. So quit looking to them for advice for training because they don't know it. And if they did, they would be a trainer and not a former pro athlete. And just because you're one doesn't make you the other. Example would be, the whole country of China. It's quite a problem. So don't look at people for how good they were and what they think works if they're not a professional in that field. Now I'm officially ranting, but does anybody have any questions about the speed ladder? I know I had a few questions about it yesterday, and some people wanted me to post, so I wanted to bring to light my thoughts on the speed ladder. Some of you may say, okay, well, what do you do if you want to work on agility and foot speed? Well, you need to work on agility and foot speed. And agility is not just cone drills. It can't just be cone drills. If you're going to some obstacle course master that's got you doing 20-second obstacle courses and footwork things, that's no different than jumping rope. Okay, I don't care what they tell you. Unless someone is doing some of those things to learn different angles of the body and pressure points and then working towards reaction and problem-solving scenarios, it's not going to apply. It's not going to apply. So don't spend money sending your kids to like obstacle course trainers and footwork coaches if they don't have any applicable skill that is going to translate. Everything you should do should be building you to those points, or it's just fitness training. And fitness training and performance training are not the same thing. Maybe for the first 30 days you do anything it is. After that, it's certainly not. So you need to separate that. Like these obstacle course trainers that call themselves footwork coaches, you're not doing a lot more than what you could do from the same amount of time that you would work just jumping rope the whole time. Is there value to that? Yeah. Is it really speed? No. It's a form of conditioning is what it is. So Chet says indications, contraindications for those who use the ladder for conditioning. So that's a good question. Chet, I would say, especially for a fighter like yourself, do I think it's a good form of conditioning? I do. I think it's a low amplitude plyometrics. We have protocols we do that like what's called a jump rudiment, which is a low impact plyometric sequence that is meant for post workout, and it's meant to work when you work tissues in from a neurological standpoint as much power as you can produce, or as high velocity as you can produce, or as much output. You only have so much bang. So after that, what do you do to continue to get better in that workout? Because that workout's pretty short. Well, you can do these low amplitude plyometrics. I would consider the ladder to be one of those. So picking like 6 patterns, doing all of them 4 times in the ladder at the end of a workout, knowing that that's conditioning for your tissues, for your soft tissues, for the demands of sport, I think that's bingo. I think that's an exact application that's appropriate for a speed ladder. We prefer to do more locomotion things in space most of the time. More locomotive responses, asymmetrical patterns that can be cued or not cued. That way that you've got an idea you can move through space, and gravity is more of a factor in athleticism, and then personal. Those squares aren't personal to your dynamics of how you move. But when you do locomotion patterns, you can kind of make it specific to the way you move as an athlete, your expression as an athlete. So I would say further than that, we really like different leap patterns. I would say if the speed ladder had a love child with some of my friends in the profession that are over here, like only do affordances and constraints and dynamical movement systems and reaction training and skill. If they had a love child, it would be our vector system, that the 21-point movement system that we have, which is a lot of angulation. So we obviously would go to that before the ladder and in conditioning. But that's a great question. Really, really good question, Chet. I appreciate that. Anybody else have a question? Because anytime there's a question, it gives me an opportunity to address things exactly as you need it, man. I want to bring the information straight to you guys. Any questions before I sign off? Anything? All right. I'm going to skate out of here. Have a great Friday. Hope you learned a little bit about speed ladders. It is controversial, but I'm here for it. All right. If it helps the kids get information, it helps the parents understand, then I'm going to do my best to bring it. Remember, any topics that you want discussed, shoot me a message. I will do it. I'm committed to doing this stuff and reaching people as much as I can, whether they can or cannot be a part of APEC. Thanks. Have a great day.